2021 was a great year for new cars, especially if you're a fan of Japanese cars. 2022 is looking even better as the industry is rapidly shifting. So in today's video, we're going to go over all the new and refreshed Japanese cars coming to America, that is, in the 2022 calendar year. Make sure you grab your snacks and drinks, and let's get into it. We're going to go through A through Z. Well, there's no Z automakers from Japan that I'm aware of, so Toyota's the last one we're going to cover today. But starting with Acura, the luxury division of Honda, been around since the late 80s here. They're bringing back a relic from the late 80s, and that's the new Integra, and it's very hotly conversed at this point in time. Most people are crapping all over the new Integra. I'm happy that it's back. I don't believe Acura should have ever changed the name of their small compact sedan. It should have always been the Integra, and I feel that way about the Legend as well, but the RLX is dead anyways. Pretty much going to be a nicer interior Civic Si, and there's nothing wrong with that. The new Civic Si is phenomenal. There's only one major downfall of it, and that's the little bit of revving you have, but because of the lighter flywheel, it's not quite as jarring. So if you haven't seen my Civic Si review, make sure to check that out. But also next month, I'll be heading out to California to drive the new MDX Type S. In 2021, we had the new TLX show its Type S form, and man, that was a lot of fun driving around Laguna Seca, and it's a really, really good car. But the MDX Type S, this is Acura's best-selling vehicle. Well, the MDX is, and that just got a redesign, remember, this past year. So the new Type S is really showing its ultimate form, and it's about time. They're claiming the MDX is their new flagship model, and what better way to give it some flagship performance with the turbo V6, 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque, and it's a shouty. Of course, it's going to have super handling all-wheel drive. The RDX also gets a small refresh for 2022. It looks like a baby MDX, and that's not a bad thing. They still all have the True Touch interface and no touchscreens in their vehicle, so how Mazda of them. Couple side notes before we move on to its parent company, Honda. NSX is gone, but it will be replaced by an all-electric NSX at some point in time, maybe 5 to 10 years. We're a ways out. What about the Integra Type S? Well, I don't know if it's going to come out in 2022, but if it does, think of it maybe as a nicer Civic Type R. I hope it's different. I hope it's unique, but I'm not going to get my hopes up here because the Integra is so close to the Civic Si. Long-term, Honda wants to give Acura over 50% EVs by 2030, and its first EV will be coming in 2024 as a redesigned Cadillac Lyriq. Not super pumped about that. That's going to lead us into Honda. There's a lot going on and not a whole lot I'm excited for. I hate to break it to you guys. We get a redesigned Pilot this year, more than likely. We get a redesigned HR-V, which I was expecting it to come last year in 2021, while many markets got the Vezel, the redesigned HR-V/Vezel in other parts of the world. We never saw it come here, and we still don't have our own version of the new HR-V, so it is what it is. We should be getting a redesign on the CR-V in general. So that's a lot of new cars coming out for Honda in 1 year, in theory, if they all come out. Pilot, HR-V, CR-V. I really don't expect any changes on the CR-V in terms of powertrains. Same hybrid, same turbo 1.5 liter. We are getting a refreshed Passport. Some people might call it a redesign because it's getting the Trail Sport, but the Passport Trail Sport signals a dedication for Honda and their off-road capabilities. So this year is the first introduction of it on the Passport, and it's mainly an interior exterior upgrade with special tires, and then next year and the years following, as Trail Sport hits more models, it will give it actual more off-roading prowess. So it'll be fun to see how that evolves in this off-roading frenzy culture that we have going on. It's trending hard right now. Civic Type R. This is also coming out by the end of this year. Honda keeps teasing it. It looks pretty good. Of course, it's based off the Honda Civic hatchback. 6-speed manual is guaranteed. 2-liter turbo is pretty much guaranteed with around 300 horsepower like the outgoing model. I don't really expect much to be different, except to be just a better version of the last one. And there's nothing wrong with it because the Civic Type R is already a fantastic vehicle. And more than likely, dealers are going to price gouge it. So don't get your hopes up too much if you're hoping for an affordable Type R. And looking forward, Honda wants to have 10 EVs in the next 5 years. I'm expecting one in the next 5 years, and that's going to be a team up with General Motors, #Gundam, and that vehicle will be produced more than likely down south of the border. The rest of those EVs, Europe, China, Asia. I don't think we're going to see any other Honda EVs in the next 5 years other than the General Motors produced one. Toyota wasn't that excited for Honda. Civic Type R is the only one standing out. Trail Sport doesn't do much for me. And Pilot, HR-V, CR-V, doesn't do much for me. Anyways, moving on to Infiniti. Speaking of not getting excited, we're going to get a refresh of the well selling for them. QX50 not well selling enough. Infiniti sales continue to sink. This past year was absolutely horrendous for them as they didn't have any availability of the best selling vehicle, the QX60. Well, that vehicle is finally starting to hit production in the later part of 2021, and they will have full production of it in 2022, but people have already left the brand at that point. But with so many more luxury brands popping up, especially EV brands, Infiniti, it's just, I don't see a long-lasting brand here. So what's next for them? Are they going to have EVs? Well, they just came out recently saying that they're going to have 50% EVs by 2030. Would you guys be willing to wager that Infiniti makes it to 2030 or not? I don't want to bet on that. Anyways, let's bring out guns blazing here. Going from as dismal as possible to as bright as possible, from Infiniti now to Lexus. Luxury arm of Toyota. Lexus has kind of been floating around, maintaining its sales the past few years, giving products not really big upgrades over its Toyota. Toyota in the past 3 or 4 years has been on an offensive, new products, new powertrains, new features. And Lexus, like I said, just hanging around, not getting too much attention. Well, that all changed this past week. Toyota announced a huge EV initiative. Lexus getting most of that attention. Fully electric in China, Europe, and of course, North America by 2030. From the IS to 3-row crossovers to a brand new LC LFA, full EV. I think I remember calling it the electric Sex Panther. And I know many of you guys would agree that this is the best looking EV lineup. How many of them are going to make it to production? It's hard to say. I would say most of them. And expect the designs to change very little. Koji Sato, who designed the LC500, is in charge of Lexus right now. Well, outside of Akio Toyoda himself. So he designed the LC500 as a concept, and Akio Toyoda told him to make it a production car, and they had to do all these crazy engineering feats to make the LFLC concept a production car, but they did it and it looks amazing. So I expect with Koji Sato at the helm to make all of these EV concepts come to life looking nearly identical, and that spells a lot of worry for a lot of other luxury manufacturers out there. The first electric vehicle from Lexus coming is the RZ450e, expecting a little over 300 horsepower here. Pretty modest acceleration, maybe around the mid 5s, but this is probably going to be the quietest EV, or one of the quietest EVs, one of the smoothest riding EVs ever made, and leave it to Lexus to do it right here when it comes to electrification. But what do we have outside of Lexus electrified? Well, quite a bit. LX600, I'm going to be driving it next month in New Mexico, so stay tuned for the channel. I want to give you guys hands-on impressions. We're giving it an ultra luxury 4-seater, reclining seats, TV screens, all that jazz. And there's also leaked pricing, which I'm not going to go over. Just know that it's going to be comparable to the current LX, so around 100 grand depending on how you equip it. There's a new F Sport model for the LX600. It's getting a twin turbo V6, gone is the V8. It's based off the new Land Cruiser. It's on the new TNGA platform. We don't have a hybrid announced for it, which is quite strange, which makes me believe, are they going to differentiate it from the Tundra's hybrid powertrain? I would say there's a possibility at this point, since it's not even announced for the Land Cruiser or the LX. That means probably different battery chemistry as well, using lithium ion instead of nickel metal hydride. That's just my guess. That's maybe what I'm hoping as well. Number one selling crossover in the luxury market, if you're not counting the Model Y as a luxury car, but the RX has been the best-selling traditional luxury crossover since its inception in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's getting a new redesign, ground up on the TNGA platform. I'm expecting to be just a bigger NX. It's going to have pretty much all the NX's powertrains. Depending on the market you're in, you could even have a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. I'm expecting the V6 to be kicked out, not only in the hybrid, but also in the normal version, replaced with a 2.4-liter turbo. They'll also hybridize that for the RX 500h. We'll get a plug-in hybrid, essentially from the RAV4 Prime NX 450h Plus. And more than likely, we'll have the RX 350h, which is going to be the 239 horsepower from the NX 350h. So the RX is going to have a plethora of powertrain options. And if you look at the new image that Lexus has shared with us for their electric offensive, there's the new RX sitting in the background there. Does that mean it could have a full electric version coming? Not only of the RX, but of the NX as well as the TX. And no, the TX is not coming for 2022. That's why I'm not going to talk about it. It's coming next year, 3-row crossover anyways. But you know, I could keep talking about Lexus transforming itself into a fully electric brand. That was a shot heard around the world, absolutely. But we need to move on because we have other Japanese companies. Mazda, one of the smaller companies we'll talk about today, as far as I know, just has one new model coming out this year, and it's coming out very soon, early January, mid-January, the new CX-50, a more rugged off-roading, maybe slightly wider version of the CX-5. CX-50 will be built in Alabama alongside of the Toyota Corolla Cross at the new Mazda Alabama plant, and it's going to have a 2.5-liter turbo. It's going to eventually be using the RAV4's hybrid system, more than likely. It hasn't been confirmed, but it has been confirmed as a Toyota hybrid, and it's about the same size of vehicle as a RAV4. So I'm expecting about 219 horsepower from the RAV4. We'll have a new Mazda 3 refresh, different wheels, slightly different bumpers, maybe different interior options, but nothing big there. And we'll also be getting a plug-in hybrid of the MX-30. The MX-30 fully EV only has about 100 miles of range, so it really needs that rotary engine. Yes, the revival of the rotary needs to come back to help this MX-30 be somewhat viable and competitive. But what about the rear-wheel drive inline-six platform? New Mazda 6 rear-wheel drive, it's a possibility. Could also be all-wheel drive, but is it going to come out in 2022? It's hard to say. I think there's a 50-50 chance. They also have the new CX-70 and the CX-90. Rest in peace, CX-9, so last year more than likely, as they bring in these larger rear-wheel drive, more upscale, very Genesis-like platforms into the market. But what about electrification? Well, they'll be able to plug-in hybrid this rear-wheel drive / all-wheel drive inline-six platform. They just take out the inline-six, put an inline-4 and a bigger battery, and they have plug-in hybrids for it. And this new platform should be able to give them the flexibility they need to make full electric vehicles out of them. So time will tell there, but we need to keep moving to Mitsubishi. Not a lot going on here. Outlander plug-in hybrids getting the redesign for 2022. Should be more powerful. I'm hearing anywhere from 40 to 50 miles of range, 3 rows of passengers, unlike the outgoing one, which just has 2. And we get a refresh on the Outlander Sport. The Mirage continues to sell like hotcakes. People need cheap cars, and I'm sure it's making a lot of money for Mitsubishi at this point, that little 3-cylinder. We have the revival of Rally Art in Southeast Asia, I believe in Thailand. It's mainly just stickers, so don't get your hopes up for like an Evo coming out, even though we got a pretty cool render this year on the Evo. Moving on to Nissan. The new Z is coming out, and I couldn't be more excited. 400 horsepower twin turbo V6 mini Godzilla rear wheel drive. They've given the old Z some new looks, new interior, new equipment, new engine. The automatic version will be getting a new transmission, new 9-speed. But since we're talking about the Z, got to bring up the Supra. Supra, it's pretty much confirmed at this point to be a manual transmission. So if the Supra is manual and the Z is manual, I think the Z is still going to have an advantage, especially when it comes to price. The other thing for Nissan is the Ariya. The Ariya is the fully electric crossover. It's supposed to come out late last year, or should I say late 2021, if you guys are remembering. And Nissan also wants to be a heavy electrified company, just like most of them going forward. But Nissan's Ariya is going to be that next chapter for them, not replacing the Leaf, but alongside the Leaf until the Leaf gets a redesigned as a crossover or sport utility vehicle sort of thing. But the Ariya is going to be coming out later this year. It has the E-Force setup, which is all-wheel drive, around 380 so horsepower. It's going to be quick, but most of the variants that we get packaged here in the United States are front-wheel drive. And when you stack them up against the competitors, we already know the pricing. They're just $2-3 grand more expensive than the next competitor's model that has the same sort of specs and equipment. So it's going to be interesting to see how Nissan incentivizes the Ariya, as well as what our sales going to be like on it. I'm a little worried for it, and we're going to move on. I don't have any refreshes for Nissan. If you guys think of some refreshes, let me know. We had just had so much in 2021 for them, but moving on to Subaru. Subaru had a really rough year here in 2021, but going into 2022, hopefully they can get those chips in, those parts in, so they can make more cars. They're on a huge backlog and they can't keep up with the orders. Their sales are down versus 2020. It's just not looking good. WRX and STI should be coming out. WRX, not really a power upgrade. They increased the engine size, but the power and torque numbers are like identical. People are not sold on the styling of it either. I'm not sold on it either. So fingers crossed that the STI will bring a little bit more excitement, a little bit more power versus what the WRX was able to do so far with what we've seen. Impreza could be getting a redesign as well. New hatchback, new sedan, maybe new styling. And then the Solterra, which is essentially the Toyota's BZ4X. They will be getting this as their first fully electric vehicle for Subaru. The Crosstrek, though, will be getting a refresh for 2022. It is actually one of their more positive models. Once it got its upgraded powertrain, people really started flocking to it. Its sales are really, really good compared to the previous year. So the Crosstrek with a refresh is going to continue to just sell in volume. The Ascent will also be getting a refresh. Reviewed that car this year. The CVT transmission essentially kills the vehicle for me. The rest of it I thought was actually pretty decent. But I'll see you guys down below on Subaru. And what better way to finish out with the Japanese automakers than to talk about Toyota, the gorilla in the room. This is the big boy from Japan, the largest automaker, and we already talked about its luxury arm earlier in the video with Lexus. Toyota's also going big on the EVs as well, increasing its investment, massively increasing its commitment to EVs from 2 million to 3.5 million fully battery electric vehicles by 2030. But what is coming in 2022 for Toyota? Well, we're getting a new Sequoia. I'm pretty excited for it. It's going to be a huge departure from the outgoing one. It's going to share a lot with the Tundra, well, the redesigned Tundra, and that's not a bad thing. We'll also get an iForce Max hybrid of it, which is pretty cool if we can get a little bit better fuel economy. I think I was getting like 13 or 14 miles per gallon on the TRD Pro that I reviewed. So yes, they can only go up from there. That should be coming later this year. The BZ4X will be coming in the middle of this year. We'll be driving it in the first half. This is the first fully mass-produced battery electric vehicle for Toyota. It'll have front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive capabilities. I have a feeling they want to keep the price down as much as possible. They're not putting a huge battery pack in it. Pretty modest, around 71 kilowatt hours, 250 miles of range on the front-wheel drive XLE model. And that's probably only going to go down to 220 to 230 miles of range on the all-wheel drive 20-inch wheel model is what I'm expecting. And by the end of the year, we could be getting a full-blown redesigned Prius. Feels like the newest generation Prius, which came out in 2016, just came out. But there's a new Prius around the corner, and we're hearing that it's going to be more fun to drive. Well, that's not hard to do. But anyways, this will be getting more electrification, a little bit more power. And we're hearing that the Prime version could be a little bit more performance oriented like the RAV4 Prime is. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of the RAV4, it'll be getting a refresh. I already reviewed the vehicle when I was at Evolution 2.0. So that will be hitting the markets early this year or late 2021, early 2022, the RAV4 refresh, new interior, standard features, things like that, but nothing major. And why fix what isn't broken? Like the RAV4 is just sells like hotcakes. Now, new Tundra started hitting late 2021, but the hybrids aren't going to be available until 2022. So I guess that's kind of something new for 2022. We haven't seen a hybridized Tundra on the market yet. I've driven them. The verdict's still out. I don't have enough time in the saddle, but that will change when I go to California in the near future to drive more electrified Tundras. We're also getting a refresh on the Highlander. Feels like that vehicle just came out. Can't believe that it's getting a refresh already, probably by the end of the year. And there's one special vehicle from Toyota coming this year that isn't confirmed, but they're teasing the hell out of it, and that's the GR Corolla. GR Corolla will be taking the GR4 all-wheel drive system from the GR Yaris rally car that we don't get here in the United States. 3-cylinder, 1.6 liter turbo, 270 plus horsepower is possible on this little pocket rocket. You can change the drive modes on it to give you more rear power if you want to drift it or put it on a track, or you can give it more all-wheel drive characteristics if you're pushing it off-road and in uncertain conditions. And just like the Civic Type R, I'm expecting the GR Corolla probably to be price gouged as well, but definitely stay tuned, as I'll probably be able to give you guys breaking news on it officially when Toyota's ready to show it officially. We know just about everything about it anyways, and I will drive it probably before the end of 2022 as well. Just wanted to thank you guys for a wonderful 2021. The channel grew immensely. I moved to Florida, and it's just been a land of opportunity for me. I just want to thank you guys for all your support. Can't wait to bring you guys into the new year for 2022, and we continue to grow our passion together for Japanese and Korean cars. And I will do a video as well for all the new Korean cars coming out in 2022. Not as long as this video. But which Japanese car are you most excited for coming in 2022? Again, thank you for all your support, and I can't wait to see you in 2022.